Hey, hello, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. As always, this is where we gather every single day to help anyone and everyone learn about modern web-based production. It's where you can submit your questions about media creation and distribution in really all of its forms. You can do that 24/7. The simple rules are one question per submission. And remember, somebody's going to read it aloud, so try to make it as clear and clean as you can, and one question per submission. If you use our Mukana system to put questions into the show, you get to vote on those questions, and the ones with the most votes get prioritized. If you're watching on YouTube, you can use the QR code that's going to be popping up on your screen right now. That you can shoot with your cell phone or whatever else reads QR codes, and it'll take you into the kind of instant system. You can put those questions in. They'll go to the back end, the crew. They'll check them over to make sure everything's kosher, and then get your questions into the mix. But that's how the show works. We're here to listen to and take care of the questions that you have, and so it's time to dive in. Courtney, what do we got today on our palette?
Well, thank you, Bill. First up, we have Harshid Trivedi from Daytona Beach, Florida, and Harshid says, looking for a speaker mic solution, maybe a PA, so all with potential hearing difficulties are able to hear in various restaurant, meeting room, or private venues. If it can connect to Zoom, that's a plus.
Okay, a lot of people want to weigh in on this. Jeff Francis is going to start us off. Jeff, what do you got?
So I was reading Harshid, who's been on the panel here. I was reading his question, and he has a later question that seems to be somewhat related to this. It said like 15 to 25 people in a restaurant, and he kind of wants people to hear in the location, but maybe potentially also over Zoom. And the other thing is, he says, as low budget as possible. So that's going to make things tough. And I think it needs to be portable because they're going to bring this into a restaurant. They're going to bring this into a meeting room. So you'd love to have, if you want to get intelligibility, a head-worn mic. And if you're going to save cost, it may need to be a wired one, but wireless would allow that presenter to move around. And then some kind of small PA system. There are PA systems that have wireless receivers built into them. These are lower quality than what we would use in a professional situation, but probably that's exactly what you're looking for in this because you can get a budget situation going on. I'm going to see if I can find something and put it in the Mukana chat of the kind of thing I'm looking at. But you're looking at basically like a powered speaker with a wireless receiver built into it and an accompanying microphone that goes with that. Sometimes they're even battery powered for the entire system. Pile is a big company that does this kind of thing.
Yeah, we've heard of them a lot. Marty Atias.
Right. So that's Jeff has a good solution. I'm not clear, however, whether how many presenters there will be. If it's one or two people who are going to be speaking, or if this is a group production where could be a round table, could be people in the audience interacting. If there are if all 25 people or as any subgroup of them need to be interacting with Zoom or talking, that's a much more difficult situation because you have a much larger group of people that need to be able to work with the microphone and interact with the loudspeaker. So that's not something that can really be done very economically. That can take something like a Nariva soundbar that has a microphone array in it as well as loudspeakers, and can connect to a computer for working with conferencing platforms such as Zoom. But it's a fairly expensive proposition.
Let's go to Jesse Kester.
Something else to consider is that if this is being done, especially for people who are hard of hearing, introducing more sound to the room might not be the solution, especially if it's a smaller meeting room or a smaller restaurant with 4 parallel walls. You might just create audio mud, and you could consider a headphone system for the people who want an augmented sound boost and let everybody else hear the natural sound of the room. You might just get a cleaner sound to the people who need it the most that way.
Mickey.
Since this question doesn't state what's in the following related question about budget, I'll first show like sort of the Rolls Royce of this. It's the Bosch Decentis system that's like what's used in the UN. That's what's used in major like conference rooms. Of course, you need the budget for it, but if you want the best of the best, the Bosch Decenta system is great. It has a gooseneck microphone. Their base stations have a screen on it, so you can feed it video, and also if you need the voting system, it can go through the built-in screen. These stations also have a headphone output, so if people need to plug in a headphone so they can hear better, or say if you have live interpretation that's going on, people can select different languages. You can set it up that way. So that's like the cream of the crop sort of a solution. A bit more effective than that, or a bit more affordable than that. You can look at the Microflex series from Shure. They have it's a wireless system that uses the DECT RF system, and they have different types of microphones. They have gooseneck bases. They have handheld microphones that go through the Microflex wireless system, and also they do have these transmitters that you can plug a lavalier or a headset mic into. But these transmitters also are able to output audio through it. It has a headphone jack. So you can, again, like if people are hard of hearing and they want to use headphones, or if you have interpretation that's going on, you can feed it through that. And then you would typically feed the Microflex system through some sort of automatic mixing processor. An example is the Shure IntelliMix P300, which also has a USB audio interface, so you can feed that into the computer that way, or you can use Dante to feed the auto mixed microphones into the computer to send it out via Zoom. In terms of your monitoring, you can use those those headphone outputs on these devices, or you can use, there are different types of conference room speaker systems. A very popular one is from Yamaha. This one is PoE. The speakers are PoE powered, and they get the signal over Dante. So if you want to stick to the Dante infrastructure, this would be a good choice. Again, it would depend on what size and also configuration, what size the room is, and also the configuration of how the seats are and all that. That would determine your ideal loudspeaker system. On the much, much lower end, you can get a simple wireless, like handheld microphone, pass that around. That would be very cost effective because you're not miking every single person individually. Then feed the handheld microphone to like a JBL Eon. Like if you need something that's compact and you can travel around, the JBL Eon speakers have been very, very popular for decades.
Wow, a lot of information to absorb, and there's also an active discussion happening in the regular Mukana chat today. So those of you who are tapped into that, Marty Adius has something.
Right. So what Mickey and everybody else has been addressing is the need to get the microphones as close to whoever is speaking as possible, and that eliminates or greatly reduces the effect of the room acoustics and feedback from loudspeakers. But if we're dealing with people with hearing difficulties in the first place, then delivering is going to be critical, how you deliver sound to them. And with loudspeakers in a room with questionable acoustics, like a restaurant, that can be very challenging because people with hearing disabilities just don't hear the way other people do. They have problems with certain frequencies that can be directly in the voice bands. And so one way to effectively deal with that is through a hearing assistance system, a listening assistance system, where you are delivering audio wirelessly to people directly through a portable receiver that they can plug into with headphones, or that can deliver sound to hearing aids if they're wearing them. And the benefit of delivering sound through their hearing aids through either Bluetooth or an induction loop that can be temporarily installed in a room, is that the hearing aids are tuned specifically for each wearer. And so it optimizes the sound for their particular hearing abilities. There are a variety of ways of doing this. There's infrared, there's induction loop, there's Wi-Fi. And coming soon is Bluetooth. So those are options that can greatly enhance the delivery of sound to people in a room without needing to set up loudspeakers if everybody has this ability.
Yeah, we're going to move on really quickly here. I just wanted to mention one thing. I've been having more and more difficulty in large gatherings in restaurants because of what some of the people in the chat have been talking about, the hard surfaces, difficulty hearing. I found that I'm occasionally just wearing my iPad Pro and turning my phone into that little microphone thing just for assisted hearing for myself in those kind of circumstances, and it's pretty effective. I think for the Zoom part that you ask about, that might be another solution to use that as a second system. Connect to Zoom through that and then do the PA stuff in the room by itself. But let's move on to the next question. We've got a lot on the deck today.
All righty then. Bo Cartle from Charleston, South Carolina says, how can I tune a software audio mixer currently using Voicemeeter Potato on Windows so that spoken words punch through? The feed is for auto transcription, so it doesn't need to sound good to the ear. Just pass the auto transcription.
Jeff Francis, help Bo out.
I love the question on Audio Day that ends with "it doesn't need to sound good," but it's going into auto transcription. So I'm not sure what else is in the spoken word, but the first thing you want to do is use some severe high pass filtering and probably a little low pass filtering, because the speech range starts at about probably 200 hertz. So you can get rid of stuff below that. You really need a good peak in the 3.5. Up in that upper mid range, you need a good boost there, and you can kind of lose everything above 8K in that kind of range. So first thing, high pass and low pass filtering, and then a boost in that intelligibility region is probably going to help the transcription.
Mickey.
Yeah, I was going to say that as well. So +1 on high pass, low pass. I would first start with the pronunciation and diction of the person speaking. That would help the most, along with their mic technique, because no matter what processing you do, if they are occasionally speaking off mic and they sound distant, any automated process would have difficulty with that. On top of that, maybe a tiny bit of dynamic range compression might also help, so that in case there are indeed fluctuations and modulation of their voice, things are kept a bit more consistent and might be easier to read by an automated system.
Marty Atias.
So the first thing you want to do is make sure that you've got the right kind of microphone close enough to the person speaking so that you get a really good audio signal. And then once you get that signal into Voicemeeter Potato, all of those inputs do have dynamics controls. They have compressor and noise gates and a denoiser on every input that actually works well enough for what you're trying to do. And so that should get you to a point that your transcription should be able to read it pretty well.
Chris Kellen, you want to answer?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much what everybody said is completely correct. I'll tell you that when you go and get your ears checked, they only test from 800 to 8K. So really, really do look at the register of whoever the speaker is to try, and it could be definitely a thing you have to search for a little bit as far as where the main strength of their enunciation lives. But you really do want to try and get things as consistent as possible, because if you are feeding this into an automated thing, while I've never used the software you're talking about, anything that you're doing in that kind of a way, it's you really want consistency, right? Because any kind of like artifacts, or like what Mickey was saying, people have really off axis if they're moving around off the mic. If that kind of stuff is not correct, it can lead to probably really unwanted results. So if you're looking for consistency, and very much like what Marty said, you really want to capture this stuff correctly. So really, really do pay attention to these things. Remember that external sounds in the room that you're recording in can really muffle that kind of stuff up, So, yeah, that's about it.
Let's go to the next question.
Next one comes in from Austin, Texas, and Paul Wallace, who asks, Google Meet has introduced a new AI-powered feature called Take Notes for Me, which aims to automate note-taking during meetings. How does Zoom and other meeting solutions stack up in this AI add-on race?
Alex, what's your thought about it?
Zoom and Teams have been doing this for a little while, so Meet is catching up in this case. So I think that they probably have a couple more miles under it. My guess is that the solutions from Zoom and Teams will probably be a little bit more robust out of the gate, just because they've been doing it for, I don't know, a year or more. So I think that Google had to add this. They've had transcription for many years, as most of the other players as well. So it's just a matter of processing that. I think that my only concern is always just remember that you're basically building something that it could be used in a court of law. So just when you have an AI thing listening to you writing notes, just know that it's building a document, and whether it's perfectly accurate or not, it still could get called. So you watch all those things like, I can't believe they emailed that. Just think of that when you think about transcription. So that's, just kind of keep that in the back of your head.
Next question.
Next one comes in from Guy Cochran in Seattle, USA. And he asks, what's new with Universe and Zoom? And he has a link there.
Alex?
Well, as we know, that Universe has been, it's obviously in Zoom ISO, we have all the OSC controls, but the Windows version of that has been deprecated. And Universe is basically bringing OSC to users. So with a graphical interface and a nodal programming interface, and so I think it's very powerful. Like, I think that in some ways, I think that now if you're using Universe and you're on Windows, you have a better way to control Zoom than you do from it'll be easier to build something more complex with less programming on the PC to some degree. Now, we do have other tools that we can use, but using things like OSC, so we can, use things like great tools like we use for this show, called basically OSC. Isadora. So those are some of the options that are there. But but I think that Universe is going to be a great solution for this. That really they're building a lot of those libraries into it. So it's very, very powerful. And so I think that it'll be interesting to see what people do with it.
And our next question relates to this.
Yeah, kind of a follow-up coming in from Alexander Knight in Port Coquitlam, British Columbia, Canada. How exactly does Universe integrate with Zoom with respect to producing a show and automation?
Well, I think we covered much of what was there. I do not deal with that. Alex, you want to sneak back in? And
yeah, this is a lot of the stuff that people were doing with Zoom OSC. So being able to drive how the windows look, being able to turn things on and off, being able to move things around. So there's a lot of control and display control from Zoom that Universe is capable of. On the Mac side, we have things like Tiles, which is another solution. Again, we have things like Isadora. We have other tools that we can use. But on the PC side, Universe is going to let you have an enormous amount of display controls and selection, muting, turning things on and off, tying things into an event. So if you're looking at how do I tie Zoom participants or a Zoom participation into a live event, that's where this is really going to, and it'll work for live events as well as online events, but it'll be a way for you to really customize it. I think a lot of people are trying to move past the Zoom look, and these are some of the tools that make that really possible.
Next question.
Next comes in from Francis Fry in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And the question is, when connecting to Zoom from a hotel room, what mic and lighting do you recommend?
And Jeff Francis is going to start us off.
I'm going to start off talking about microphones. If you are going to be prepared and carry something with you and you have some budget, probably like something from the Shure MB7 line that's USB, so it can connect easily to your computer without an interface. And you'll, of course, need a stand to hold that in place. If you need a drop in budget from that and you don't want to use your laptop microphone built in, we had the Pile headset, which then plugs into a little USB adapter, which actually fairly effective, about a $40 solution. I'll tell you something to remember, and this is something I did once when I had no microphone with me, and this was way back, I think, at least a decade ago, but I actually built sort of a little sound booth around my laptop to get some of the sound of the hotel room isolated out of there. Grab the pillows off the bed, put them around my laptop. So don't forget to deal with acoustics as best you can.
In the voiceover community, those are called pillow forts, and we've all done them when we've had a pickup that we had to do in a hotel room on the road. Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, there's a behind the scenes of Dirty Jobs with Mike Rowe with a blanket over his head with an SM58, doing his voiceovers for Dirty Jobs. I've done this, I've done a couple hotels, and it's always evolving for me, but it's kind of settled in a little bit. Here's a couple iterations. This one, I use these 6Cs because they're really easy to pack, for lighting. Now, I tend to use DPA 4066. The new ones are the 6066s, I believe. And the reason for that is I can never figure out whether I'm going to have a table. I'll show you more pictures of them. And so I don't know where I'll put the stand. So having a headset mic has made that a little bit easier. I also have a bad habit of carrying aperture 6 or 7Cs, and that's here. So I actually took the bulbs in the hotel out of the lights and put colored lights in, and then I can actually control the color of my background using the fixtures that already exist. It's really, so that's kind of useful. Usually I have a couple extra 6Cs here that I can just kind of throw down. So I usually have 4 of them, and 2 of them are to light me, and then the other 2 are to blow a little light up here. And then I try in different hotel rooms. Are different. I actually know in most hotels that I stay in LA, I know which hotel rooms to ask for or which number after the 100 to ask for. So you know that it's 113 and 123 and 213 and 313 are all going to be the same layout. So I ask for specific rooms or room sets to try to make sure I have the right one. This is another one that I kind of played with here. This was, you can see that I was in a hotel because I didn't have anything to put my laptop on, and so that was my travel case. This one is a little bit, I started to kind of evolve this a little bit. And so this is, again, this is kind of in a fold up table. And I got the stand. And the one that I have kind of settled in on, this is the problem with mics that I have to put on a stand is there's not a lot of room, so this one, I didn't have a lot of room to put it on. And so that's why I moved to kind of a headset mic. And then this is probably the one that I've kind of settled in on. So I've got a FX30. I've got these 2 small tripods. I've got a switcher that I can, typically it's just so I can protect myself by putting up a blank frame. I don't really have anything to switch to. There's the Mix Pre 3. The Mix Pre 3 is really useful because of noise assist. It's a really small and compact thing that you can get rid of the noise, the air conditioning in the hotel room. And then the headset, of course, that I talked about earlier. I use this to manage Mukana, to do the questions. And then this is a Brukun stand that I can pull. It kind of unfolds, and that gets the laptop up a little bit higher so that I get my and this all fits. All of this will except for the laptop, which I put in my backpack, all of that fits into a 1510, which is the rule. So it all has to fit into a 1510. I then check my clothes but that kit will all fit in, and I can set that kit up in about 8 minutes. Not that I time myself, but it's plus or minus 30 seconds of 8 minutes every time I set it up.
Mickey McAchore.
So yeah, I think it's always helpful for us to put a sort of like a budget range because I think several of us have walked into hotel rooms and turned them into a live hit studio for like a live news broadcast, and that's bringing in hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment in that. But thinking along the lines of, say, I know Francis produces a podcast or podcasts. I would probably, in terms of lighting, I'd probably look into something like a Nanlite Lumipad or something similar along this price range of this 120 US. 2 or 3 of those, 3 of them allows you to do basic 3-point lighting. Would be a good baseline for things. 3-point lighting, so a key fill and a rim/hair light would allow you to do that really well. Tie that in with I like these little Manfrotto stands because they're fairly light. These baby stands are fairly light, fairly compact, and I love that they are able to stack together. They clip together, so you can have this nice package of like 3 stands or 4 or 5 stands that end up being really compact when you're traveling because they all stack with each other. I like for a typical broadcast radio sound, I like the Electro Voice RE20. The MV7 is also good, as Jeff mentioned, because you can use the built-in audio interface in it and plug it directly via USB. But sound-wise, I'm a big fan of the sound of RE20s. And in terms of mounting the microphone, I carry around a bunch of these little mounts from Dincom Systems. And they're these little clamp mounts. Let's get this flexi mount here. And they allow you to just clip onto like a desk, and they can carry the weight of an RE20 no problem. They can carry cameras, SLRs no problem, and you can also use them to mount lights in odd places. And I have a bunch of these packs that have like multiple Dincom mounts on them, and they're super handy.
Jeff Francis, you want to come back in?
I wanted to ask Mickey to put the Manfrotto stand that he talked about, put a link to that in the Bucana chat. And I wanted to ask Alex if that laptop stand was an away luggage suitcase. Is that what it looked like? And I will say that was a very, very costly recommendation for me because I've given away a lot of money and all well spent because it's been great stuff. But I have several sizes now.
Yeah, it is in a way. That's the very first version, and it was the one where the battery was basically built into it. So I had to remove the battery surgically because it's not the one where they figured out, we got to pop it out because the airlines won't let you take it in. So, but what I love about it is it's very durable. I've been using it obviously for a decade, I think, and it still looks pretty much the same. And it's very, very light. So it doesn't add any weight to anything else I'm putting into it. Yeah, but it's great. It's a great case. The away cases are great.
By the way, Bogan Manfrotto also brands those as stacker stands. I think I've had mine in my suitcase for probably 30 years. And I'll just quickly, this was my rig in the Las Vegas hotel room when we were working in NAB. I've kind of fallen in love with those little arm and pole systems. This is on a clamp. I don't know if you notice it, but right behind the center of this, there's an incredibly small shelf in this room. And in Las Vegas, they don't give you any more room than they need to because they want to pack people in. So that's just a really thin shelf that would have held nothing. But the clamp from this newer arm rig, these rigs are very light. Those arms are aluminum, and they're very, very useful. So I was able to hang an external monitor, my camera, the microphone mount, the laptop. You will notice that I'm on the traditional ice bucket riser on my laptop on the bottom of the picture. And that was the one little table I had in the room, and I was able to put together a really convenient and useful little mobile rig that was out of the way and didn't have a lot of stuff attached on the floor. It was just the table that came with the room, and it was really useful in that way. So that turned out to be a pretty big success for me this year in Las Vegas. Mickey, you wanted to come back in on this?
Yeah, I just wanted to add for Jeff, the Manfrotto stands. I think they have either three or five different models that have the stacking system, if that's what you're looking into. Of various different sizes.
Yeah, the small ones are what I had, and I have the old ones that are made of aluminum, and boy, they've held up for a long time. Alex, you want to get back in?
And Mickey talked about, like, if you start spending money here for a larger hotel room rig, if you want to, this is a little bit more. So here you have the Diva lights with a teleprompter. We have a mic. This is a shotgun mic here. And then we carefully placed the speaker here because with the guest here, we couldn't put an in-ear monitor in. And so let's see if I have one. There's the reverse. So you can that's 300 miles away. So this is a point to point to a location. So anyway, so that's how and it can get, as Mickey pointed out, it can get much bigger, but it starts to you can scale it up. Once you get a hotel room, you can do a lot of damage.
Yeah, I wanted to make one more thing, too. The other big problem I have in hotel rooms is space. These rooms are small, and then by the time if you get a room with double beds, it's actually better because you can usually keep one neat, because that's going to become your background because you don't have any other angles. If you can get into one of the longer term stay hotels that have a little kitchen, I have often found that the counter that separates the little kitchenette from the room is a great place to set up your rig. That way behind you, you can have a wall rather than the bed in the room as your background, which is always, for me, the most uncomfortable thing. I think it's a little unprofessional to have a made bed, or worse, an unmade bed in the background of your Zoom shot. So just noting that. Next question.
Next one comes in from Jack Cannon in Phoenix, Arizona. He says, jib or slider for a sit-down interview? Which one do you prefer and why? And you can only pick one.
Jesse Kessler is going to start us off. Jesse?
If we've got a nice room and a good lighting setup and we're allowed to show the full room with the cameras and the lights, we'd love to use a jib, and that would just be at the beginning of the interview for a high-up shot coming down, and at the end of the interview for a low-down shot going up to show that we're leaving the room. If we weren't allowed to do that, I would say the slider is the one to go with if we could get 6 feet of slider into the room. What you don't want is like 1 or 2 feet of slider, and you're just doing this like tiny move that is interrupted mid-answer, and you have to slow down the camera and start it going in the other direction. We'd never use that kind of slow down and reverse. So if we had 6 feet that we could do really slowly and really clean, we would consider the slider. Or we'd go with my favorite, which is just a tripod for those interviews.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, I concur with Jesse on just the tripod. If you only have, depends on whether or not you have multiple cameras to cover this interview or not. If you don't have multiple cameras, you only have a single camera, I'd go with the jib arm. That way it makes resetting a lot easier to get a reverse of an interviewer or a wide shot or a different angle on the person speaking for different setups that you can do. You can move the camera a lot easier on a jib arm than you can on a slider. Remember, on a slider, most of them more than about 3 feet require 2 points of support, so 2 tripods that you're going to mount that slider on to slide back and forth on if it's any length, like 6 feet was mentioned. And so if you have to move that around to get a reverse shot of the interviewer or something for B-roll, that's a big move. The jib will speed all that up quite a bit and give you a lot more flexibility. Also, I kind of don't like a slider on an interview. It gives you a little parallax move, but if the person goes on and on and on, like I'm doing now, you run out of slide, and it's a bad move to stop and go back the other direction in the middle, and it gets boring and repetitive if you're constantly going back and forth when you're cutting back to that person.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, I love jibs, and not so much because I move them a lot. I love them because I get a lot of movement, and I can just figure out where I want to be. So I'm not moving tripods around or trying to rebuild a set or whatever. I'm like, oh, I like this angle, I like this angle, I like this angle. And a lot of times if I'm doing an interview, sometimes I'll get those different angles there. But if I'm going to pick one, I'm going to always pick a jib because, again, I can use it for other things like the pickup exterior shots, all kinds of other things where you just get a little bit of movement. I don't actually use the jib that much. I don't move the jib that much in an interview. I don't move the camera very much in an interview. I think we all keep on going back to, we don't move the camera very much. So, but I love using it to do big swings and move ups and so on and so forth. And like a little jib, I had a little jib that was probably 6 feet of extension, and it fits into little hotel rooms, but it creates just enough parallax that you can do really great establishing shots outside and so on and so forth. My favorite tripod, if you go to a tripod, is the hot pod. So this is you can see that this is what it looks like when it's down, and this is what it looks like when it's up. And there are so many times when you get a teleprompter, you get a bunch of gear on it and everything else, and then you realize, the camera would be better if it was another 6 inches higher. If you don't have a hot pod, you go, maybe not, because moving all those legs and doing all the things that you need to do to raise it up. With a hot pod, you grab a little handle and it just goes whoop, and you just lift up 35 pounds or 30 pounds of gear all the way up and down to get it just right, and it allows you to make better choices. So if you know where you're going to be, it allows you to make the choice that is the right choice, not the one that you had time for. And so the hot pods are really good. They're a lot less expensive. When I bought them, I think they were $3,500 each, and Manfrotto's now selling them for, I think, $1,700. They're not cheap, but they're great. Maybe I had a bigger one or something, because now I can see ones that are $4,000. So they're expensive, but kind of life-changing once you own a couple of them.
Mickey?
Yeah, I agree. Like, it's rare that on sit-down interviews, directors and DPs ask for a moving camera, unless it's like a very I know Jack is working on a documentary. I don't see it very often in documentaries. Usually, when we see like moving cameras on interviews, it's for like really quick corporate stuff or advertising pieces. But again, there's no budget listed here, so I think this is typically what the people use, at least on like larger sets. It's a Magnum dolly. It's a motorized dolly. It booms up and down with a motor. You have a ton of options in terms of your control mechanism. It could be you could use a wired controller, a wireless controller. There are a ton of configurations for them. Different types of batteries, different capacities depending on the weight that you you would like to carry around. And also, you can also get an addition to it that adds a jib on top of the dolly, of the Magnum dolly. So if you need to go, do a lot of boom ups and boom downs, you can do that in addition to booming the actual dolly core up and down, so you can get really high with it. I guess here's a behind the scenes photo of people using it with the boom all the way up. But if you're looking for something a bit more compact and less intrusive on a sit-down interview set, the Dana dolly is sort of a staple. You use speed rail, which is readily available on most sets, to create your dolly tracks, and it uses, I believe, these are skateboard wheels, and that's sort of like the very very stereotypical like small dolly or small slider system that you would find on sets.
A lot of chat about this in the chat too. Tim McCulloch said, a jib if there's room, a slider if not. And then Roscoe comes in with, a jib can slide, but a slider can't jib. So a lot of thoughts on this topic. Let's go to the next question.
Next one comes in from our friend Bo Cordell in Charleston, South Carolina. He says, what is the best Windows software-based noise reduction solution to isolate the voice from a live microphone for audio transcriptions?
So, Courtney, start us off here.
Well, cheapest, best, isotope. But for audio transcriptions, you could just use the regular equalizer that's built into most mixers and post-production sound packages. For live, though, NVIDIA Broadcast, if you happen to have an RTX GPU in your laptop or your desktop, you can use NVIDIA Broadcast, which has a very good noise removal software in it and AI enhancement software built into it. And it's a free download. So take a look at that. Of course, Isotope and, Cedar, you can get those as well if you have a very large wall.
Jesse Kester.
The best camera is the one you have with you when you need to take a photo. The best noise reduction, we've always got DaVinci Resolve open on multiple computers here, and we just chuck audio into their noise reducer relentlessly, and we do transcriptions on that audio in Resolve. I mean, it comes out as subtitle format, but it's just a really quick and dirty way to get it all cleaned up and transcribed quickly.
Yeah, all the NLEs now have voice isolation features built into them. I know I use it occasionally on Final Cut for post, and that's different than the live stuff. For the live stuff, you're listening to me through a Universal Audio Apollo that has the Cedar plugin running that's taking care of the room noise while I'm speaking with it. So lots of solutions. Oh, Marty has another thought. Marty?
Yeah, there's a basic difference. If you're doing this in post for transcription, you have lots of tools available to you. If you're doing this live for transcription, then you need to use something that that works instantly. So you might want to, if you're not using an interface like Bill is using for microphones, if you're using a mixer going into a computer, then you might want to look into a VST host and then choose a plugin for noise reduction.
Bo, hope that helps. Next question.
Next question comes in from Josh Kaufman in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. What is the best way to get clean video from an iPhone camera to an Apple TV on the same network?
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, you can do it a couple different ways. The two ways that I do it, Shoot is a great app that Michael Forrest has been on, and his app will do a clean output from it. And basically all you have to do, and I've mostly used an HDMI output, but you should be able to do it over AirPlay. So basically you just share your phone and then you switch to the app. I know that with the Blackmagic camera, you can do the same thing. So the Blackmagic camera that's out there, I could probably do it even. If I have an app, so what I have in my switcher is I have an Apple TV that is attached to my switcher as an HDMI output. So anytime I want to share something to the switcher, I just tell it to share there. So now if I let's see here, if I go to 3, you should see there's my phone, and if I hit let's see, and if I turn it sideways, you should see it. Yeah, there you go. So that's the Blackmagic camera. And that was pretty quick, and it's great and the latency is very low, and it works well.
Next question.
Comes in from a first-time caller from Novato, California, and Alex Lindsay has this question. We have a concert tonight, and I have the details.
Wait, didn't we ban that guy? No. Oh, I guess not.
Kick that guy out. so anyway, I'm actually leaving right after this answer. I got to go get ready to set up. So we're going to be setting up today. We'll send some photos and put them in Discord. But we've got the Verve Pipe is playing in Mill Valley, so we talked to the band and talked to the Sweetwater, which is is the venue, and they've got a pretty good internet connection there. So we're going to do an interview with Brian Van der Ark on. And at 6:00 Pacific Standard Time, we're going to attempt to stream the concert at 8:00. So we're going to see how that goes. No one's ever done it before. We're connecting to a rafter, and I got 15 minutes to attach the camera. So there's a whole bunch of things here that may not work. But if we pull it off, it'll probably be the first. Now this is going to be streamed. You'll be able to watch it in Safari and possibly Chrome. I'm not 100% sure. So we're streaming from an iPhone in stereo. Now, if you're in an Apple device, that should just show up as a regular one. And I think in Chrome it will do the same thing, but I'm not 100% sure. So it should show up as what we call MVHEBC. So it's left and right eye, but if you don't have stereo, it should just be mono. So anyway, so if you have that, if you have an Apple Vision Pro, you'll see it in 3D. So if you're using the Stream Voodoo app, so if you go to streamvoodoo.com/spatial and you download that app and put it on your Apple Vision Pro, you'll see a stereo stream, which is we think will be the first time a concert's been spatially streamed live to the Apple Vision Pro directly. So it's going to be, the audio will be, we will be feeding the board audio. I'm not entirely certain that it will be perfect. I mean, oftentimes it's being mixed by the house for the house. So I imagine the vocals will be somewhere ahead or behind the rest of the band. That's usually what happens. I'm going to try to see if I'm going to have enough channels down there that I potentially could even that out a little bit. So we're going to try to get some stems, but we'll see. It all kind of came together real quickly. We were planning to do it in a studio. That didn't work out. So we moved to Sweetwater, which I think we may end up doing a lot more at. So anyway, it's if you are interested, and also if you have questions for Brian, you'd like to submit them, you can just go to ask TVA or TVP, ask TVP. That's ask the Verve Pipe, but it's not all spelled out. So ask tvp.live, and you'll see a little Q&A there that you can put questions in. So if you've got questions for Brian to answer this evening, go ahead and throw them in there. Ask tvp.live, and you should see a little interface there that you can put your question in. So anyway, should be a lot of fun. We'll post more stuff in Discord to let you know where to go, and hopefully this is the beginning of a lot of these. So stay tuned.
Alex, which part of Discord? Because people who are going
there,
the
Alex announce. The one
Alex
where I just go add everybody and I just put it in there, so it'll be hard to miss. If you go into our channel and some people go, "Hey, please stop sending those." I try not to send them very often, but I do. So anyway, we'll broadcast it out there.
Nice. Well, looking forward to it. Break a leg, as they say in the theater business.
Thanks.
Next question.
Next one comes in from down in Vieira, Florida. Andy Kokendorfer asked, how would you extend your company network into a leased co-working space for device control?
Marty, do you want to start us off?
Sure, I'll start off. There are a number of ways you can do this depending on how much control, how many devices you need to control, how many devices you need to control from in this distance space. One way is to, between routers, you can set up a VPN tunnel that can make your remote location actually a part of your near location. So your home location is your base network, your remote location is your co-working space, and you can integrate the two so that they're actually one big network. Another way to do this is to, on the home base network, create a VPN that you can then remotely access from a distant computer, and that will give you control from that computer. You'll be able to access any device on the network by calling up its IP address. You can also do something if you're trying to control something through a computer in the home base. You could do something like remote desktop or one of the remote desktop application platforms. I'm sure others will have additional ideas.
Courtney, your thoughts?
What I used to do, rather than try and go the whole VPN route, is I just set up a wireless access point. I always would do this on set all the time when I have all my control video things I have to send control video signals to. I just get a 2.4 gigahertz, and this is important, just a single band 2.4 gigahertz access point, a cheap one. I plug it in via Ethernet to the company network, and I set up a separate SSID with its private password, and that keeps that communications that goes to all my that goes to all my remote control devices private, and it doesn't let anybody come in and steal bandwidth from me, and that way you control over it, and especially with a lot of these lights and LED controls that only support 2.4 gigahertz. Most of them are all 2.4 gigahertz based. So if you get one of those fancy routers that uses the same SSID for dual band 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, it's a problem for some of those devices, because they'll try and use that SSID that you gave them to, and it'll try and connect over 5 gigahertz, and it won't succeed because the radios are only 2.4. So a separate 2.4 access point, it's simple, it's cheap. You plug it in, give it a separate SSID that you have to load that SSID and password then into all your devices that you want to control, and keep them on that private access point.
And Mickey.
Yeah, I would also recommend going through the VPN route. A big question though is if you have access or if you have control of the network infrastructure at the co-working space, because that would determine how that would determine your ability to be able to deploy a VPN into the facility. If the network is not yours, if the co-working space network is not yours, and you can't configure their network, that would limit you a lot. So if that's the case, on the higher end, I would probably look into a Meraki system with a I think they call them telecommuting gateway that allows you to bring this gateway into a network that you do not fully control, and everything that is underneath this gateway can be VPN backed into your main office network. Aside from that, you can also set up some sort of tunnel from the likes of, say, popular ones, like the ones I use a lot are Tailscale. Sometimes I use Cloudflare as well. And you would want to build this separate tunneling infrastructure within your own NATed network inside the co-working space, because you don't want to affect the rest of the network and allow people access to and from your office network through that tunnel. So you want it to be segregated from the rest of the public that's using the network inside co-working space.
Let's go to the next question.
Next question comes in from Harshid Travati in Daytona Beach, Florida. It says, looking for a solution to support 15 to 25 or less in a restaurant meeting room. This is kind of an extension from his previous question. To get a mic where people can hear on a Zoom hybrid meeting. Should there be a wireless or a wired mic, a PA system that can be used on Zoom? Budget is the least cost. This may be a duplication.
Yeah, we talked through this a good little bit earlier. I think the bottom line, what I heard from everybody, we had a long discussion of this. It was our first question today. So small meeting, restaurant, those are kind of difficult conditions. So always when you're talking about signal to noise ratio with microphones, the closer the mic is to the mic of the person speaking, the better. A head-worn mic is usually the best circumstance if you have a noise environment because it gets the mic right down next to that. Wireless or wired, I think everybody knows that wired mics are always the most dependable solution unless you have a lot of traffic. I've seen a lot of circumstances where in a small gathering like that, there's a mic on a stand so that it doesn't have to move anywhere, and people who want to ask questions or something like that walk up to it rather than trying to make it a wireless thing. It's not always true, and if people have to move around, that's why wireless mics exist. A couple of other people have raised hands now. So, Jeff, dive into your side of this.
Yeah, you were kind of covering just what I was going to say is that if the mic needs to go from person to person, then that needs to be a handheld, typical kind of mic, not a headset mic. There's just too much work in taking a headset mic off and putting it back on. And then if it needs to move, then wireless is better. But if the people can move to the mic, which often is a good thing in a meeting anyways, because then people are not speaking over each other. We have great etiquette here in office hours of not speaking over each other, but that is not every meeting under the sun. So if people have to go to a microphone to be heard, that forms a line, and then you have some good etiquette there. Again, some of the ones we linked before, if you need to tie into Zoom, some of those do have a line output and analog line level output that could go into an audio interface and could go into Zoom so that people could hear the microphone on the other end of the Zoom call.
Courtney?
Previously I was going to put up this. There's these budget systems. You said budget is an extreme requirement here. These are fairly cheap. These are fairly large drivers. You can get them at Costco, and this is at Temu, which is like Chinese Amazon, but they do ship to the United States. These type of systems incorporate a wireless mic, handheld wireless mic, so that's good. As Jeff was mentioning, can be passed around and kept close to the mouth to prevent feedback. It has a built-in mixer. And besides the wireless, it also has a Bluetooth connection. So you could then pair your laptop to that Bluetooth connection, bring that Bluetooth connection up, and then you could connect to Zoom over your laptop and use the audio Bluetooth connection out of your laptop to feed into the PA system. And perhaps if it's a two-way Bluetooth, back from the PA system microphones into the Zoom session. So you might be able to do it with something like that as cheap as, under $300 for a pair of speakers and stands and a microphone.
Next question.
Next one comes in from Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. Says, on the Sony ZV-E10 II, what are the advantages of using the RTMP, RTMPS, YouTube, Facebook, etc., versus SRT? And what are the uses of each streaming destination setting?
Paul, unfortunately, nobody else raised their hand on that, and this is not a subject that I do any work in all the time. I don't own a ZV-E10, and I don't really do that much live streaming to destinations, so it looks like this one's going to be one we're going to have to politely bow out of, and make sure that you hang on to your question and put it back in on another day, and I'm sure you'll get a better answer. Let's go to the next question.
All right. Next one from Anahuahi, Black Bear Marshall in Oahu. Says, heard someone saying you can use NDI for KVM control on some computer devices. Is that true? And how do you do that?
Mickey, can you help him out?
I know it is true, but I have not used it, so I can't tell you how to do that. But I know that a couple of days ago, or perhaps sometime last week, Guy demonstrated this when you asked the same question previously. So look through the previous couple of days of episodes and look for a guide demonstrating the use of KVM using NDI.
And I'm seeing some microphone tags for the second hour discussion on the other two I have set up. So I'm wondering what's going on if the back end wants to ping me in the headset or just, do we dive into the microphone stuff or, oh, here we go. Now we got a general question up. Let's go to the next one, Courtney.
All right. Comes in from Harold Williams in Portsmouth, Virginia. He says, I recently purchased a Teradek Prism Mobile. I was impressed by its performance. Could you guide me on how to benchmark this unit? I anticipate questions about its quality, reliability, and latency. Is there a website that specializes in this?
Jesse Kester.
This might not be the answer you're looking for, but you're going to be doing all of your benchmarking in the field before you do the shoot at the location. For something like wireless technology, you can do all the tests you want in any lab environment you want, but until you're in the actual venue with the actual, steel beams and concrete walls, you don't know where that device is going to fail. So what you want to do is get into the venue a day, a week early and run just endless tests of what it can and can't do in that environment. And I wish you the best of luck, Sarah. Sorry I don't have a better strategy in pre-production for that one.
Maybe Mickey has some more suggestions. Mickey, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll definitely put it in through its paces in actual production-like situations. Don't do your testing during real paid work, but put it in the same situations. Test it in the same environments, like the same type of heat that you may be operating this in, the same type of humidity levels. This is the mobile version, so you'd be most likely be pairing it off Anton Bauer or V-mount battery. So test like at what voltage of the battery does it cut off and die, and do multiples of these tests so that you have a good number of samples, so that for certain that, say, maybe you just had a bad battery, or maybe you had a battery that performs lasts longer than others. So do multiples. Put it through. Put it in an environment with not very great cellular RF reception. Put it in real world situations and see how it does there.
Courtney?
Yeah, I was just going to say benchmarking this can be very tough because there's way too many variables. This unit uses both Wi-Fi and cellular and bonded cellular between multiple carriers, and the latency is going to be different on each carrier. And your minimum latency you can count on as being about a quarter of a second, 250 milliseconds at best. So it goes up from there. So you can aim for, if you have something that needs less than that, that's not a good solution for you. But benchmarking, like everyone else said, it depends on the environment that you're in, the number of people that are using the cell phones in that neighborhood, or Wi-Fi, whether it's Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 5, Wi-Fi 4, LTE. All those are variables that come into play as to the speed and bandwidth that you're going to take on.
Very nice. Don't forget, it is Wednesday, which means that after the show, the Squares TV Application Lab with Michael Forrest takes place. So that's something you can dive into. Tomorrow, the Isadora Lab with L. Wilson Spiro after the show. And Oliver Breidenbeck does his MIMO Live Lab. So if you're interested in learning about some of these new technologies, that's the Wednesday and Thursday kind of lineup. This Friday, Story Hour. Particularly exciting this week because it's going to be Story Hour with Courtney, our own Courtney Gooden, who has that beautiful golden statue over his right shoulder. Will tell us that story and some other things. I know that CJ is going to kind of interview him about his career and some of the things he's done. So that should be fascinating. So make sure you come back and hang around on Friday. Saturday, it's 1 hour of Q&A. We use a different system on Saturday and on Sunday, so we're always running experiments and trying to figure out how to push the boundaries of production forward. And in just under 45 seconds, We're going to have a chat about the audio side of the world. Jeff Francis, professor here, is going to start things off and lead us through. Well, I'll start things off, then I'm going to immediately dump it to Jeff, who knows way more than I do about all sorts of audio things, as do some of our other panelists. We have a great audio crew here, and we're going to be discussing the fundamentals of microphone types. So it's a great day to refresh your knowledge about polar patterns, pickups, what kind of mics are the best in which kind of circumstances. And as always, if you haven't already, you can add questions specifically for the second hour, and then we will deal with those questions as they come up through the course of the show. Basically, we're going to be back in a few seconds.